to speak to a symposium at the University of Toronto, and I said, UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying overhead. On Earth at this present time, and at least two of them probably working with the United States government. The other species that I learned about not too long ago was called the tall whites. To become spiritual beings and practice the one tenet that the world's major religions have in common, and that is the golden rule.
A book critic writes about a book named Millennium Hospitality by Charles Hall as follows. Millennium Hospitality is not like any other book you may have read about aliens. You will find out many new things, such as the answer to the question, where do the children of aliens play? This book is about friendship, romance, terror, and is based on the true life experiences of the author, who claims he is not an alien. Hiroshi Hayashi, Hamama City, Japan. トール・ホワイト、つまりノッポの白人と呼ばれるエイリアンの話。ノッポの白人 E.T. の際立った特徴。チャールズ・ホールは次のように記述している。つまりノッポの白人は身長が6から7フィート、つまり180から210センチの範囲にあり、大変痩せていてひ弱な感じであると。皮膚の色はチョークのように白い。ノッポの白人はいくつかの点で私たち人間とは肉体的に異なっているが、最も重要なことはノッポの白人はヒューマノイドであるということ。その事実に最も大きな意味がある。彼らのライフスパンは人間のそれの約10倍である。ノッポの白人は私たち人間のように年を取らないが、約400年を過ぎたところでノッポの白人は第2の成長段階に入る。結果として身長は9フィート、2メートル80センチ前後になる。彼らはおよそ800歳で器官が故障し死を迎える。元生物学者によれば、外惑星人は私たち人間には似ていないと思われているが、それは自然環境、環境的変数、また多様な環境による無数の遺伝的要素の中で別個に進化するからである。一方、別の科学者は普遍的な要素があって、例えば人間にとって良いことは他のどの異星人にとっても良いことなので、皆似てくると主張している。UFO の世界で人間が遭遇した多くの ET たちは人間によく似た実態を持っているので、つまりそんなにも人間によく似ているので、互いに深いつながりがあるはずと考えられている。現在のケースはその一つということになる。ノッポの白人は全体として見れば人間とはよく似た体型をしている。つまり二足直立歩行をする脊椎動物である。例えば人間のような顔をしているなど、適切な衣服さえ着ればノッポの白人はラスベガスの街の中でも人間として歩くことができる。 ノッポの白人は会話能力があるが、彼らの発声音は人間の耳に聞こえる周波数の外にある。言い換えると、私たち人間は彼らの声を聞くことはできない。普通に話すときは、犬の吠え声か巻き場鳥、つまりヒバリのように聞こえるが、ノッポの白人の中には人間の声を真似し、人間と普通の会話をすることができるのもいる。また中には特別な人間の声を真似する者もいて、それがあまりにも上手なので、例えば電話で話したようなとき、区別がつかないほどである。ノッポの白人はまた会話装置を持っていて、人間はその声を自分の頭の中で聞くことができる。それは短距離5から6フィート、約2メートルでしか作用しないし、その時人間の方はノッポの白人に対して側面積、つまり側を向けなければならない。その装置は言語翻訳機としても働く。時々セットの仕方にもよるが、ホール氏が言うには、時にはノッポの白人同士の会話があたかも互いに英語を話しているかのように聞こえたこともあるという。すでに述べたように、職員たちとの接触のような場合、混乱状態が起きることがあった。その時、兵士が傷ついたり死ぬということもあった。ノッポの白人はしっかりと武装していて、些細な挑発でもそれが理由で人間を殺すことができる。ノッポの白人は人間よりも反応が早く素早く行動する。例えばノッポの白人を脅かしたりすると、警告なしでその場で切られたり血を流したりするかもしれない。ノッポの白人はさらに鉛筆型の武器を持っていて、相手を失神させたり麻痺させたり催眠をかけたりする。あるいは人間に対してひどい痛みを起こしたりする。人間がノッポの白人を困らせたり脅したり、あるいは彼らに危険行為をしたようなとき、ノッポの白人はそれをしばしば使う。武器による効果はマイクロウェーブの周波数を変えることによって決まる。つまりそれによって人間の体の中でさまざまな変化を引き起こす。ノッポの白人は親しみやすいが、時には傲慢になり侮蔑的な態度をとる。彼らは人間の中における階級に敏感で、例えば地位など軍の高官やその周辺の人たちとは人間関係を育てようとするが、その一方で地位の低い人たちを見下したりする。ホールは自らをノッポの白人たちのペットとすることでノッポの白人たちとうまくやっていた。彼らはホール氏をホール氏のいるところでペットとそう呼んでいた。で、やがて先生のペットというのがホール氏の暗号名になったが、 E.T. や彼の活動をした軍人の間では一目置かれるようになった。ホール氏は両政府から重要人物として働くよう選ばれた。で、それらの仕事の中にはノッポの白人と人間との文化的順応などの道筋を探るための指針計画を進める仕事なども含まれていた。 E.T. を見れば誰だってパニックになる傾向があり、また武器で E.T. を攻撃しようとするが、ホール氏はこの期間彼が示した稀なる勇気で表彰されている。ネリスでのノッポの白人のグループは人間のそれとは違った家族形態を持っていた。ノッポの白人はネリスで一緒に働いたり仕事をしている E.T. をおじ、いとこ などの家族名を使って呼んでいた。ノッポの白人は子供の世話を大変しっかりとしていた。子供たちは成長し、藪の中で教育されていた。ノッポの白人はいわゆる私たちが管理と呼ぶ問題を抱えていた。ノッポの白人は彼らのペット、つまり人間を管理する必要を感じていて、ノッポの白人は私たちを管理しながら観察していた。外惑星との接触という人間にとっては夢のような話において、このようになるだろうということは多分誰も想像し得なかっただろう。彼らは全体的に見ると人間のためにというか、あまりにも私たち人間に似ている。それゆえにこの話の真実性を疑う原因となっている。このロジックに注意してほしい。この側面、つまりノッポの白人たちは、例えば私たちが家族と共にどこかの敵意のある地域に移住しているかのように行動するが、それについては議論する価値がある。つまり私が言いたいことは、オープンセチが他で書いていることをよく読み、いくつかの段階においてオープンセチの解決策と関係しているということ。オープンセチ、at glance を開くか、パラグライも検索してみてほしい。ノッポの白人の出身地。36光年離れたところにあるアルクトゥルスについて話したとき、聴衆がざわざわとした。しばらく間を置いて、年配の女性がかなり驚いた様子でこう聞いた。先生、チャーリーは私たちはどこから来たのか知っているのですかと。先生は次のように答えた。いや、確かなことはわかりません。ノッポの白人たちがどこから来たのかと尋ねられたとしても、ノッポの白人にしてみれば、その場所の名前を人間が知ることもないだろうからということで、その質問を避けるでしょう。多くの重要なものについて、人間には人間が使う名前があり、ノッポの白人にはノッポの白人が使う名前がある。私たちが何か英語以外の言葉でホール氏にそうした名前の話をするようなものではないか。ノッポの白人たちはチャーリーにこうした反応を示したときには、いつもノッポの白人たちは自分たちの間で彼らの吠えるような声でよく笑ったものだ。小さな冗談のようなものだったが、チャーリーはその都度自分を自制し、抗議したりはしなかった。事実、ノッポの白人たちはこうした問題を微妙な問題と呼び、そのように扱っていた。しかし、ホール氏はそれまでに培ったテレパシーのような感覚で、アルクトゥルス、もしくはその近くのどこかは彼らにとっては極めて重要なところであることを感知することができた。彼らの究極的な故郷はどこか別のところにあるかもしれない。最近連絡を取ったところ、ホール氏は次のように述べている。ノッポの白人たちがどこを故郷と呼んでいるかについて、それがどこか私は今まで考えることができなかったが、私の推測によれば、それは地球からおよそ105光年離れた星ではないかと思っている。ホール氏の最大限の推測は素晴らしく的を得ているのではないかというのも、別の乗り物やスケジュールなどを注意深く観察しながら、ホール氏はそうした計算をすることができたからである。現在の地球基地をいつ設置したかについては曖昧である。ホール氏が感じたところによれば、 白人がやってくるのに先立ち、ノッポの白人たちはその場所をすでに知っていたようである。さらに言えば、ノッポの白人の中の一人は、マジソン大統領時代にここ、つまりインディアンスプリングスバリーへやってきたというようなことを暗示したという。しかし、ホール氏が見た感じでは、ノッポの白人たちの避難地や地下内部の部屋は、ノッポの白人のためにアメリカ合衆国政府が1950年代のいつか建設会社を使って作られたかのように見えたという。ホール氏は、ノッポの白人たちは地球をあたかもただの中継地のように、つまりノッポの白人たちは地球を旅行ルートの中にある中継地のようなものとして使っていると信ずるようになったという。ノッポの白人たちは地球を自分たちの故郷ともっと別のある遠方の目的の間を行き来しなければならないが、そのためホール氏が言うように、私たちの太陽系は外宇宙の中ではその中央部に位置しているようだと述べている。私たちの太陽系から見た次の表は彼らの星を知るために役に立つかもしれない。テクノロジー。ノッポの白人たちは明らかに高度なテクノロジーを持っている。ホール氏はノッポの白人たちの外宇宙航行用の宇宙船、地球近辺及び太陽系の近距離用スカウト船、また彼らがいつも携帯している武器、さらには空中浮揚装置や防御用フォースフィールド装置のある特別服については簡単に触れながらも、ノッポの白人たちのテクノロジーについては内容を限定している。彼らの2種類の宇宙船については、私たちの団体、つまりミレニアム・ホスピタリティを通して配布されている。これらの内容はホール氏との連絡の中で、それらはおおよそ次の表に示されたようなものである。内容。ホール氏はスカウト船の内部、船の推進装置を垣間見ることができたが、それによればファイバーコイルのようなものが無数に巻きつけられていたという。彼が見たこれらのシステムからホール氏はその動力の物理的理論を発展させた。外宇宙用の船は高速よりも早く航行できるということ、そして ET たちの故郷の星までは2、3ヶ月の時間で行くことができるということ。驚くべきことに、スカウト船はノッポの白人が示した使用書に応じて人間によって提供された部品を使い、この地球上で組み立てられていたということ。マイケル・サラとのインタビューの中から。私は本の中で先生と第4階級のハリーがスカウト船の内部を見せてくれたと書きました。船内のシートや頭部用などの多くの部品は多くのアメリカの会社、例えばボーイングやロッキードのような会社によって据え付けられました。頭部用部品は明らかに取り外しができるもので、エアーストリーム社のような会社からのものでした。またノッポの白人たちが着ているような衣服についてはセアーズ社やモントゴメリ・ワーズ・カタログ社から直接購入していました。が、それでもこれらの船は無重力状態で無質量航行ができ、超高速まで加速することができました。が、ノッポの白人たちが望むほどの信頼性はありませんでした。ホール氏はこれらの船に使われている 推進装置の限界を指摘した。つまり、オーバーヒートしやすく、そのため、ファイバーコイルの信頼性を損ないやすかったことなど、以下、そのための対処法などが詳しく説明されている。Hello, this is Hiroshi Hayashi, Hamama City, Japan. Tall White. Mr. Chris Grow introduced or showed two photographs or pictures of Tall White in Japanese. Chris Grow さんという方がですね、真偽のほどはわかりませんけども、トール・ホワイトの写真を2枚紹介しています。この人は性別はわからないそうです。男か女かわかりませんけども、トール・ホワイトだっていうんですね。で、メモを見ますと、外惑星人、extraterrestrial beings ですね。そしてノルディック、北欧系であると。身長は153から193で、人間よりは高いと。髪の毛はブロンドであると。顔は真っ白。チョークホワイトって言いますね。で、テレパシーで交信すると人間とはね。で、体型は人間と共通しているということだそうです。その、クリスさんのですね、原稿というか、その説明を翻訳してみました。で、現在、トール・ホワイトはアメリカ政府と仕事をしていると。それについてのビデオはこの後につなげておきます。で、もう一枚の写真がこの写真なんですね。どういう風にして、どこで撮ったかわかりません。で、そこでですね、もう一回原点に帰ってギリシャ彫刻っていうものを見ていますよね。ギリシャ彫刻っていうのは何度も証明しましたように、神々がですね、当時の、等身大で自分たちの姿を、3D プリンティングテクノロジーによって彫ったわけであります。つまり人間が人間を彫ったのではなくて、神々が神々自身を彫って、我々がね、記念撮影するように写真撮るように撮っていたということなんですよね。出ないというならこれは誰かという問題も出てくるわけです。そこでスウェーデン、いわゆるノーディック、北欧系のスウェーデン人という言葉が出てきましたので、北欧のスウェーデン人の、女性を、の写真を拾ってみました。これ北欧ノーディックの、私も、ある程度見慣れていますが、北欧系の人だということは納得します。一方、ギリシャ人はどうかって言いますんですけど、ギリシャという国はもういろんな、民族が入れ替わり立ち替わり入ってますからね。しかしこのあたりがギリシャ人かな、トルコ人のうちも入っているだろうし、というようなことで、現在、いわゆるその、血の交流というか、が盛んに進んでますから、ギリシャ人というのは分からなくなってきているわけです。この女性なんかそうじゃないかと思うんですよね。で、一度比べてみますと、これが北欧系ノーディックの女性ですね。そしてこれが、ギリシャ系、トルコ系の顔が少し入ってるかなっていう感じです。で、ギリシャ彫刻がどちらに近いかってことなんですけども、先ほど言いましたように、ギリシャ人の顔って、古代ギリシャ人の顔っていうのはわかりませんのでね。しかし、彫刻を見る限り、すでにもうギリシャ彫刻に表現されている顔は、明らかに北欧系の顔ですね。ですから、この、クリスさんが紹介しておられる、この、トール・ホワイトの顔が、本物かどうかということはわかりません。それは別にして、 まあ、これがトールホワイトかなと。私はイエスとも言うことはできませんし、同時にノーと言うこともできません。まあ、トールホワイトに関するビデオはこの後つなげておきますから、どうかご覧ください。Hello, this is Hiroshi Hayashi, Hamamasuri, Japan. This is a sort of a interview program of Home Pope Hellyer, the former Prime Minister of Defense and Force in Canada. And he said, alien life forms present among us. This is the story about it with my translation. Thank you very much.
It's great to have you with us on our show. Why do you say that UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying over our heads?
Well, because I know that they are. They've been, as a matter of fact, they've been visiting our planet for thousands of years. And one of the cases that would interest you most, if you give me 2 or 3 minutes to answer, is during the Cold War, 1961, there were about 50 UFOs in formation flying south from Russia to across Europe. And the Supreme Allied Commander was very concerned and about ready to press the panic button when they turned around and went back over the North Pole. They decided to do an investigation, and they investigated for 3 years, and they decided that with absolute certainty that 4 different species at least, had been visiting this planet for thousands of years. So we have a long history of UFOs, and of course there's been a lot more activity in the last few decades since we invented the atomic bomb, and they're very concerned about that and the fact that we might use it again. And because the whole cosmos is a unity, and it affects not just us but other people in the cosmos, they're very much afraid that we might be stupid enough to start using atomic weapons again, and this would be very bad for us and for them as well.
So no serious scientist has ever publicly confirmed evidence of an encounter with extraterrestrials. Why would scientists not confirm the facts if they exist?
I'm afraid they must go out of their way not to find, because if they did, even 10% of the amount of research I've done in the last 8 years, they would be as convinced as I am. I mean, they could do it even faster. Might take them a little longer, a military background, but there are so many wonderful books that tell these stories, and they've been authenticated. The sightings have been authenticated by more than one witness, and also by radar, and they have landed in various places around the world, including Russia. There's a famous case there. I can't remember the name of the place, but it was widely reported at the time. A man wrote a book about it, and then the French bought the book rights so that it wouldn't be circulated around. There's just so much evidence. Take the time off to do a little bit of research and study. But people just are, some people are interested and will take the time, and the others just say, oh, it's just fantasy. Mm-hmm. But since I've been public on this subject, I get probably 3 or 4 emails a week from all over the world, from people who have actually witnessed sightings, and some of them who have actually been on the ships, and some of them who have actually been transported to another planet. And so this information is not, it is top secret in a way that the governments aren't talking about it. But if you listen to the whistleblowers and the people who have worked in the industry and who know what is going on, there is just a lot of information out there, and it doesn't take very long to get your hands on it.
But see, the problem is that some people who report UFO sightings and alien abductions have been shown to make things up, and to make things up to be famous, to make money, or just for a prank. How do we tell fiction from a fact?
Well, you have to spend a lot of time trying to find. We used to say separating the wheat from the chaff, and it takes a lot of effort. When I was minister, I got sighting reports, and
when we checked them out, about 80%, about 8 out of 10, were not real. They were sites of Venus or plasma or, you know, a dozen other things. But there were 15 or 20% for which there was no explanation, and they were the genuine unidentified flying objects. These things go way back. One of the conferences I went to was in Las Vegas, was promoted by a chap who had written a book about crashes. And there were dozens and dozens and dozens of them, and many of them very, very well authenticated, so that it would be impossible to read all of that evidence and not to come to the conclusion that these vehicles were real.
Have you ever had your own encounter?
Not an encounter with aliens, no. I have seen a UFO about 120 miles north of Toronto over Lake Muskoka, where I have a cottage. And 2 years ago, last Canadian Thanksgiving, which is October, my wife decided she wanted to go out and look at the stars. So I'm not much of a night man, but I put on my cap and went out with her. And she looked into the eastern sky and said, "There's a star." And I turned around the other way and I said, "Oh, there's a much brighter one over here." And she looked, and it was. And we watched it until our necks almost broke for about 20 minutes. And it was definitely a UFO, because it could change position in the sky by 3 or 4 degrees in 3 or 4 seconds. And I checked out, there were no satellites that could do that. The space station wasn't going by, and it isn't able to move that fast anyway. And there was no other explanation except that it was the real thing. And 2 days later, I went down in the dock, got a comfortable chair, and watched it came back almost to the same spot and entertained me for as long as I could take it. And then I went back to the cottage. But it was very interesting, because it would drop down in the sky, and then it would roar back up, and then it would shift across a few degrees and do a circle and come back at a speed, which, you know, just astronomical speeds. As you know, they travel very, very fast.
So does it just look like a falling star that falls really quickly and then rises again? What does it look like?
Well, it just looked like a star.
It just looks like a star. Right.
And I don't know if you're a person who has ever read the Bible or not, but I think the Star of Bethlehem is God's flying saucers.
Mm-hmm. But you also tell me that people write you emails, 3 to 5 emails a week, and they've actually been abducted, or they have encounters with the aliens. Do they actually tell you what these aliens look like? I mean, you know, everyone's interested. How would I know if I see an alien and if he abducts me?
Well, the first question you have to ask is, how many species are there? And I used to think there were, you know, between 2 and 12. And Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who came to Toronto a few years ago and had dinner with us, agreed that it was somewhere between 2 and 12. But the latest reports that I've been getting from various sources are that there are about 80 different species. And some of them look just like us, and they could walk down the street and you wouldn't know if you walked past one. And they're what we call the Nordic blondes, and also the tall whites, who were actually working with the United States Air Force in Nevada. They're able to get away with that. They had a couple of their ladies dressed as nuns went into Las Vegas to shop, and they weren't detected. And I have a friend who saw one of the men walking along the street, and somebody who would recognize that they were different, and he did. So there are those kind, and then there are the short grays, as they're called, and they're the ones that you see in most of the cartoons. Have very, very slim arms and legs, and they're very short, just a little over 5 feet, and they have a great big torso and a great big head and great big brown eyes. But they're different species, so you have to know that they're different species, and and know that they're all different. Mm-hmm. So one if you saw the short gray, if you saw the short grays, you'd certainly know that there was something up that you'd never seen before. But if you saw one of the Nordic blondes, well, you'd probably say, "Oh, I wonder if she's from Denmark or somewhere," you know.
So this species that you're describing, are they all different in terms of nice and mean? Are some of them nice and benevolent? Are others nasty? Or how are they? Are they good to people on Earth, or are they here to harm them?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer because they have different agendas. And maybe all of us on Earth should have the same agenda, but you couldn't say maybe that Russia and China and the United States all had the same agenda at every turn, because they don't. And I would say that nearly all are benign, they're benevolent, they want to help us. There may be one or two species which do not. And that's one of the things I'm investigating at the moment, is to see who they are and what they're up to and what their agendas really are.
All right, we're talking to Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Minister of Defense, who says extraterrestrial life forms exist and are present on Earth. We'll talk more about what they are and why they're here after a short break. Stay with us. And we're back with Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Minister of Defense, to talk about extraterrestrial life forms. Great to have you back. So these extraterrestrial creatures, where did they come from and how did they get here to Earth?
They come from various places. For a long while, I only knew about ones who came from different star systems. The Pleiades and Reta Reticula and several other star systems, but in the last few months I have met people who have made me aware of that there are some in our star system, and that there are actually extraterrestrials who live on a planet called Andromeda, which is one of the moons of Saturn, and that there are others on Venus and some on Mars, and that they may be interacting between themselves. I suspect that they are, because there is what of these people, and they have rules. For example, one of the rules is that they don't interfere in our affairs unless they're invited to. And that's one of the reasons probably that we haven't seen more of them until very recently. And so
but what do you mean? There are a lot of people who want to interact with them. There are a lot of people who actually want to see them and know who they are. What, they need a special invitation to interact with us? What does it mean? They don't want to interfere into our affairs. They
want to tell us how to run our affairs. They have accepted the fact this is our planet and that we have the right to run it, but they're very, very concerned. They don't think we're good stewards of our planet. We're not. We're clear-cutting our forests, and we're polluting our rivers and our lakes, and we're dumping sewage in the oceans, and we're doing all sorts of things which are not what good stewards of their homes should be doing, and they don't like that, and they've made it very clear. And as a matter of fact, they have given us a warning.
How?
And this has come from more than one source.
How have they made it clear? What have they done?
They have talked to people. One of the chaps I talked to about a month ago was interacting with them in 1974, he and his brother, in Peru, and they were taken to Andromeda, teleported, and they were told what the people there think, and that we're really wrecking our planet, and in fact that something dreadful is going to happen to it if we don't smarten up and change our ways. We spend too much time fighting each other. We spend too much money on military expenditures and not enough on feeding the poor and looking after the homeless and the sick, and that we are polluting our waters and our air, and that we're playing around with these exotic weapons, thermonuclear weapons and atomic weapons, which have such a devastating effect both on our Earth and on other areas in the cosmos, and they don't like that. And that's the reason they would like to work with us to teach us better ways, but only, I think, with our consent. And they work through individuals, and they try and pick out individuals who won't be frightened to death of them, because they can give you quite a fright. One of the cases I'm familiar with was the Tall Whites in Nevada, where the United States Airmen working with them, were just frightened to death of them. And one, Charles Hall, rescued the daughter of one of the high-up people in the Tall Whites, and as a result became very good friends with the mother. And as soon as they could trust each other, they had a wonderful relationship. And he wrote a book about it. It's called Millennial Hospitality. Millennial Hospitality. And it tells you how you go through these stages of being scared out of your wits. But then when you establish a trust and a working relationship, why you can have the same relationship, same kind of relationship that you would have with someone here on Earth.
But here's what I'm thinking. If you're outing their presence, which is clearly not what they want since they're hiding, why aren't they so afraid of, why aren't you afraid of repercussions? Because you're obviously stating that they're here among us, and you're telling me all the species that exist.
That they are here among us, and I'm not afraid, because in most cases, as far as technology is concerned, they're light years ahead of us, and we have learned a lot of things from them. A lot of the things that we use today, we got from them, lead lights and microchips and Kevlar vests and all sorts of things that we got from their technology, and we could get a lot more too, especially in the fields of medicine and agriculture, if we would go about it peacefully. But I think maybe some of our people are more interested in getting their military technology, and I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong-headed, and that's one of the things that we're going to have to change, because we're going to have to work together.
Talking about
all of us, everywhere on the planet.
You mentioned military technology and swapping technologies and barters between aliens and people in American government. I want to ask you, as a former Minister of Defense of Canada, is interstellar war a possibility? Should we be creating a Star Wars force to defend ourselves from possible invasion or something like that?
Well, I think it's a possibility, but it's a possibility especially if we shoot down every UFO that comes in our airspace without asking who they are or what they want. And right from the beginning, we started scrambling planes and trying to shoot them down, but their technology was superior enough that we weren't able to get away with it. Certainly not for a long while. And during that period of time, they could have taken us over without any trouble if they'd wanted to. So I think we have to, rather than develop our own Star Wars, Earth Star Wars, to protect ourselves against them, that we should work with the benign species, who are the vast majority, and work together and rely largely on them, of course, and cooperate so that we would be contributing something at the same time. But I don't think there's any point in us developing a galactic force that would tempt us to go out on our own and get into mischief, which is one of the things I think some of them are concerned about.
But what do you expect to happen if people start to believe in alien existence? Because things are definitely going to change. Our lives aren't going to be the same anymore.
Well, I hope that's the case. I hope that's the case, and I'm all for full disclosure, and I'm going to push very hard for full disclosure in the book I'm writing, and to give some reasons for it, things that we really have to know and have a right to know, and that our future as a species, and here I mean all of the species in the world, are potentially at risk if we don't figure out what's going on and work together to try and make life more amenable for all of us.
But it's
And to work with our neighbors from other planets as well.
But still, like, I'm thinking to myself, if they've been here for such a long time, as you say, and they're interested in helping humanity, as you say, why is our world such a mess? I mean, if you want to help someone, you just help someone. You don't wait for someone to invite you to help that someone, no?
Well, I don't, you know, it's something that I think parents can sometimes say to their children, this is what you should do. But that doesn't mean the children are going to do it, does it? Because the cosmos is based on free choice. And we're given the option of making mistakes, of making wrong choices. And I guess what bothers some of us is we've made too many wrong choices and not enough right choices. So we're going to have to start switching our priorities and stop spending so much time and effort and weapons to kill each other or to dominate each other, and spending a lot more time on how to help each other to have a better society and life which is healthier, and where the health care is better, and where the food distribution is better, and where the air is cleaner and the water is cleaner, and all of those things that are waiting to be done if we just get together and row, as we say, rowboat, row in the right direction, the same direction. And it's possible, but it's a tall order, and so far we haven't done it. My thesis will be that we have to do it, and we have to start doing it right away.
Thank you so much for this interesting interview and insight on extraterrestrial life. That was Paul Hellyer, former Canadian Minister of Defense. He says aliens exist and live among us on Earth. That's all the time we have for today. I will see you in the next edition of Sophie & Co.